What's good, y'all? It's HB Punch and Profit. Another amazing prediction on my end. Terrence Crawford beats Canelo Alvarez, becoming three-time undisputed champion. I'm not shocked. I know a lot of people are, but I wasn't shocked. I predicted this fight was going to happen after Terrence Crawford beat Earl Spence. And I also predicted on my YouTube channel that he was going to convincingly beat Canelo Alvarez. But it was fun to watch. It was fun to watch him make history and get the credit he finally deserves. And I said it in my breakdown yesterday. I hope you guys watch my breakdowns in the future because I'm going to make you a lot of money if you're betting. So I'm going to make you a lot of money sports betting if you watch my breakdowns in boxing. But it doesn't shock me. I told you guys what to watch out for. Terrence Crawford has a unique ability to counter counters. Okay. It's one thing to be a good counter puncher like Canelo, right? But to be the type of fighter where you can counter counters with not just one shot, but two or three, four shots answering back, ripping off flurries, which you saw last night. That's some 80s type shit. That's some Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Meldrick Taylor, Pernell Whitaker, Julian Jackson. That's the type of era, we're talking about here. And that's the type of ability that Terrence Crawford has. And the only other fighter I can think of off the top of my dome today that has that type of ability is Jaron Boots Ennis. And I know there's more. There's probably several more out there I'm just not thinking of. But the only other fighter who has that unique ability, right off the top of my dome, Jaron Boots Ennis. Jaron Boots Ennis. But Terrence Crawford, he should be on Mount Rushmore. I think he can compete with anybody's Mount Rushmore. Still people are criticizing, saying, oh, well, he just beat Canelo. Well, I thought this was one of the greatest Mexican fighters of all time, if not the greatest. And then he didn't just beat one of the greatest Mexican fighters of all time. He jumped up essentially 3 weight classes and went to a weight class he's never fought at and beat Canelo convincingly. Now, I went on a limb and I said he was going to get a TKO anywhere from rounds 8 to 12. And I think he could have if he pressed on the gas. I really do. I think he could have if he pressed on the gas, but he was smart. He knew he was winning the fight convincingly, and it was smart for him not to take a chance because Canelo was still dangerous in the later rounds. He was still throwing some big shots, and all it takes is one big shot. Even if you get back up, that could change the scorecards, especially for a guy like Canelo. So smart move by Terrence Crawford. I think he probably could have finished Canelo off. But you got to give Canelo his due as well, man. You got to give him his respect. He's got a legendary chin because most of those shots he was taking would put other fighters down. Easy. Most of those shots. And, he was clearly getting knocked back at times. And I told you, don't be surprised if you see Crawford back him down or fighting in the pocket with him, which he did. Okay. And but you got to give Canelo credit. He's a class act, and I respect him. I'm going to be watching and supporting his future fights because of how classy of a dude he is. Giving Terrence Crawford kudos and giving him full credit. He could have made a lot of excuses, and he didn't. So that's very classy. It goes to show the character of Canelo. And then on top of that, he impressed me with his countering abilities. I didn't get to see too much of Canelo's earlier fights. I knew a lot of people talked about his countering abilities then. But he showed me a lot. He did answer a lot of Crawford's counters. But like I said, what made the difference was Crawford always had an answer and rattled back with flurries, 3, 4 more shots or 2 more shots. And yeah, so we should consider Crawford one of the greats. And the reason why I could see this coming is because, look, you got to stop. As casual fans, you have to stop just looking at punching power and resume. Look, I know this is the age of social media, and, we tend to give a lot of credit to people with a lot of followers and clout and views on their videos, but that doesn't make you an elite fighter because you have a big fan base and people know your name. Does that make Jake Paul an elite fighter? Does that make Jake Paul elite fighter because we know his name and he has a big fan base and he gets a lot of views? Okay, so just because you didn't hear of a lot of the great fighters on Terrence Crawford's, just because you're not familiar with how good some of the fighters on his resume were, doesn't mean he wasn't fighting elite fighters. Do you think he could jump up 3 weight classes against one of the face of boxing and beat him the way he did if he had no experience fighting elite fighters? He didn't even take a fight at 168 before. He's as great. He's better than you guys think. I'm telling you that. He's better than, because there's still people doubting like how great he is. That Majimov fight, I told you guys, you're reading too much into that. Majimov is a great fighter. He is an elite fighter. Stop it. Virgil Ortiz, who's a knockout artist, could not get Majimov out. He couldn't. Majimov is an Eastern Bloc influenced fighter, herky-jerky, awkward, a switch hitter. You know, these are the hardest fights you can take. And then on top of that, it's harder to take on a guy like that who's a no-name, because it's hard to get excited for him. And that guy's hungry. He's coming in trying to win. These Eastern Bloc influenced fighters, you saw it with Victor Postol and Crawford. You saw it with Mean Machine. And there's several other fights I can list. Not all Eastern Bloc, but there's several other fighters I can list on his resume that were elite fighters, that were tough fights. And these smaller weight classes, what you guys don't get is they're very skilled, very high IQ, very technical, well-conditioned fighters. I rather face a big guy. When I spar, I rather face a bigger guy than one of these smaller guys who's very technically sound, and then they bring up their power. Okay, and they got punching power, because those guys are a nightmare. They move a lot. They're small, so there's not too much surface area to hit. Their defensive skills are phenomenal. So you know, these smaller guys are they're very technical fighters, and you have to give, my son's trying to get in. But they're very technical fighters. They're very tough to deal with. Okay. And Crawford is one of those special guys like Manny Pacquiao who can come up in weight and carry their power and bring all their skill and ability to these fights. And, you guys just didn't see it. You know, these Eastern Bloc fighters, they're very tough guys, man. They're like the Dagestanis of MMA. They have very tough upbringings. They're very smart, high IQ guys for their sport. And they're just very technical. And a lot of people are reading into that Majimov fight and doing boxing math, and boxing math doesn't add up, folks. Like, oh, this guy beat that guy, therefore they're going to beat this guy, or this guy struggled with that guy, therefore ABC. No, it just doesn't work like that, man. It's all about skill. It's all about style. It's all about technique. And, you know, I'm not saying I don't take into consideration power or, you know, a guy's resume, but you gotta look a little bit deeper. It's about skills pay the bills, folks. Skills pay the bills. And Crawford has very unique skill set, and I'm just glad to see him get this W. I hope he rides off into the sunset. I know he's going to be tempted to come back, because Turkey's got a lot of fight ideas and probably going to pay him royally. He can probably get some crazy generational money if he continues to fight, but I would like him to ride off into the sunset. He has nothing left to prove. I'm sorry, this guy belongs on Mount Rushmore. In with his unique intangibles, his Jordan-esque mentality, his frame, his physical frame, his athletic ability, his competitive spirit, and his skill set and his ability to switch hit and adapt. You telling me he can't compete with the greats? Don't agree with that. But this is HB, Punch and Profit. Just check out my breakdowns. If you want to bet on fights in the future, I'll hook you up. Peace.